Bonjour, bonjour. Welcome to something a little bit different today. This is French Country Journal, and all I'm going to do today is read you some extracts from a book which I wrote a few years ago now, but I always remember about it this time of year. So let's share the screen to start with and tell you a little bit about it. Okay, there we are. So it's Welcome to French Country Diary, and let's feel a little bit inspired and thoughtful around Christmas. I keep coming and finding photos of Christmas last year and Christmas when we were in the lockdown, the confinement in France, and that makes me feel Christmassy when I look at that. So what we've got today is, I guess you could call it a Christmas special. We're going to look at extracts from the book Making Christmas Mindful, which I wrote way back in 2017. And if anybody wants them, I shall put these onto the channel. Here are the links to the writing I do on Substack, to the photographs that Nigel tends to post up on Instagram, and our attempt to do an Instagram en français as well, in French. Okay, I'm going to be honest, those photographs that you're seeing on the screen are from last year, which was one of our most spectacular snow days that we've had. For anybody who follows and reads me on Substack, I often talk about the lane, the chemin rural, which goes past our house, and the top picture is the lane, and the walk up the lane past the chestnut trees. So here we are, some extracts from my book, and I'll try and do several of these. That's the book. Seeking Seasonal Serenity, all about those stepping stones as we get to this time of year and that period where sometimes people start to feel a little frazzled, think they haven't got everything done in the time that's available. So there we go. I'm going to stop sharing that now and go back and talk to you about some of the extracts from the book. So, approaching Christmas, seasonal stepping stones. That's part one. We then move on to part two, which is mindful in midwinter. But we're going to think today about seasonal stepping stones towards Christmas. Okay. And a mindful midwinter scene. So settle down somewhere, quiet and empty your thoughts. Those thoughts will creep back again, but when they do, just notice them and let them go. They can float away. And name the feeling the thoughts create, if you want to do that. It might be a feeling of anxiety, overload, tension, tiredness. Might be a feeling of happiness, serenity. But I'm going to assume there's a little bit of tension. And imagine in your mind the written word of the feeling, and then just let it float away. And arrange and look at something seasonal, something that you've found and brought in from outside perhaps. Maybe some pine cones, or some autumn golden leaves, or rather like the idea of seasonal apples from the supermarket, which you can actually then cut open and smell the scent of the apple as well. That's a really good one. Look at the objects, and after a few moments, let your eyes relax and soften. Notice the colour, and the variation in the different colours of this seasonal arrangement that you've made. And let the colours and the objects just blur together as your gaze softens. Reach out and touch the objects and feel that texture of the pine cones or apples. It's a mindful, multi-sensory experience. And the more that you engage your senses in noticing and observing, the stronger those mindful pathways in your brain's firing and wiring systems will become. Now, take it a step further. Imagine that you're walking outside in the winter woods, a changing landscape, perhaps some leaves still clinging to the trees, or perhaps very bare winter skeletal leaves, skeleton shape of trees transforming the landscape. The low winter sun is shining through, illuminating a forest with wintry light. Look and notice the light flickering through the branches. Time is moving on towards the depths of dark winter, but here, in this forest, light is making a pattern on the fallen leaves and the moss on the forest floor. Sometimes at this time of year, there are rain-filled days, and I look out of the window at one today. Or the tail end of a hurricane with its gnashing gale-force winds. We now have storm names like Paul or Nigel spinning across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe, and wherever storms come from in the United States. I know on that Florida coast it's not been easy this year. But today the woods are warmed by rays of winter sunshine. It will be dark soon. It becomes dark so early in these short midwinter days, but for this moment there's a space with sunshine. You might even imagine blue sky showing through the skeletal branches of the wintry trees. So you're there imagining yourself in this scene. You walk through the woods. You feel the cold air on your cheeks and your hands. Maybe pull gloves onto your hands or push your hands into your pockets. Take in the sights, the sound, the texture of the image in your mind. Notice the quality of the light, the sun, the shade, flickering light, or a dark corner under the canopy of the trees. What sounds do you hear? The wind, the leaves, the water, maybe birds singing in the distance. I read last week that the robin is one of the few birds which sings throughout the year. Maybe there's a robin singing in the distance. And is the air still, or is there a slight breeze? Is the air cold and biting, or warm by the sun? It's absolutely your choice. Keep walking and hear the crunch of the leaves underfoot. And as you walk, take in the calmness and strength of this scene in the woods on a wintry day. And here's a poem by Krishnamurti. Have you ever noticed a tree standing naked against the sky? How beautiful it is. All its branches are outlined, and in its nakedness there is a poem, there is a song. Every leaf is gone, and it's waiting for the spring. When the spring comes, it again fills the tree with the music of many leaves, which in due season fall and are blown away, and this is the way of life. First frost. It's happened and will happen again many times before we reach spring. Frost. Last year there was surprisingly very little frost here in the Yorkshire Dales. Already this year the hills have been cloaked in white. Yesterday, around noon, I drove past places which were still frozen from the day before. Frost pockets which were still cold and white after the ice had melted everywhere else. The landscape here looked amazing in the early morning light, the mist rising up and out of the valley, giving a spooky impression of a Gothic story. the cold mist leaving frosting on hills and valleys as it evaporated. It's a work day. Work has to be done. Windscreens need to be scraped of ice. Defrosting the car. Let's make it a mindful opportunity. I'm convincing myself of this as I leave the house. An icy moment. I take my gloves. I feel the texture and temperature of the material. Pulling the gloves onto my fingers, I feel a tingling in my fingers and a feeling of softness wrapping my fingers and hands in their warmth. This is a time to breathe and wait before opening the door and feeling the cold air on my face. As I approach the car, I look around me, noticing the frosty morning. My breath is visible, streaming out of my mouth in the frozen morning air. Are there birds in sight, searching for food on this winter's morning? Listening and noticing noises around me, a car driving past, a dog barking in the distance. I look for patterns in the ice. How thick is it? In some places, the icy pattern is opaque. In others, I can see through the icy veil right into the car. I feel the can of chemical de-icer in my hand and notice it's icy cold. I move around the car with a structured, organised, mindful approach to spray, noticing the melting ice and water forming rivulets on the glass. Some parts resist melting and need another spray. Cold and colder air surrounds me as I work methodically. I get in the car and switch on the engine. Inside, the windscreen has condensation, and I watch it gradually reduce and disappear. If you don't have a car or live in a warmer place than the Yorkshire Dales, then find something which helps you focus on frost and ice meditation. Even a Christmas card or a picture that you find from an online search can be a focus for meditational thinking thoughts. It's cold outside, bitterly cold, and yet it's still beautiful. Some of you, it might be a rainy day. So I shall end today with a suggestion for puddle dancing. If you're feeling low in spirits at all, I recommend searching online for Gene Kelly dancing to Singing in the Rain. Watch the clip. Notice the rain and the puddles and rejoicing with the childlike fun of the splashing and the puddle dancing, a happiness of the character dancing in that torrential downpour. Notice the bouncing of the rain on the ground and the shimmering of the water on the car roofs. Imagine feeling that rain falling on your hands and on your hair. Notice the random act of kindness at the end when Gene Kelly gives his umbrella to a total stranger passing by in the street. You might also find that the version where Paddington Bear recreates the Gene Kelly scene is worth a look. It's uniquely special. So, let's finish today with an idea for Apple Fest Day, which is very much of an Advent activity. So let's read a final extract for today. Today started with sleet before moving to periods of winter sunshine. As I walked to the car, I noticed the sun shining through a leaf and the low, hazy winter sun brightening the sky. Clouds flitted at different speeds across the sky, and I felt glad it was a day for warm spirits. I had some time today to do something different and practical, so I decided to focus on apples. Because apples are one of those fruits that we rely on in the winter. They also give a wonderful opportunity to seek out seasonal spices like cinnamon, nutmeg and cloves. I chose several different types of apple. It's possible in the supermarket to just put 1 or 2 of each variety in a bag. A golden green russet, a crunchy Braeburn, a Fuji and a Cox's Pippin, along with the Bramley cooking apple. Arriving home, I put all except the Bramley together in a bowl. If you do this, then spend some time looking and noticing the apples, the shapes, the differing colours and the overall pattern in the bowl. Close your eyes and see the apples in your mind. Open your eyes and notice the apples again before doing the same thing yet again. Look, but this time imagine the bowl of apples transformed into a painting. It might be a fairly exact, still life type of painting, but still imagine an apple with the brush strokes making up that painting. Or you might be someone who imagines a more modern abstract image based on your bowl of apples. Some of you who've explored mindful thinking before will know about the raisin meditation exercise. Do the same thing with an apple. Do an apple focus meditation. If you do a search for raisin meditation, you'll find lots of different versions, and it's certainly worth looking at. Nearer to Christmas, when you're seeing raisins in mince pies, Christmas cake and puddings, obviously you can change it to raisin, but for today we're going to do it with an apple. So prepare your apple first. Choose and take an apple and cut it in half and hold it in the palm of your hand. Gaze at the apple. Notice it with thoughtfulness and full attention. As you did when you were looking at your bowl of apples, look at the colour, the shape of this very unique apple. There will only ever be one apple of this size and weight. Touch it, the apple, and look at the other side. Smell the fragrance of the apple. As you smell, do you feel any sensation in your mouth or your stomach? And taste. Move the apple slowly to your lips. Do the actions as if you're in slow motion. Place the apple on your lip and into your mouth. Bite a piece and feel that sharp crispness of the biting action as it happens. Your tongue moves forward to chew and your lips close. Chew slowly with very thoughtful movement. So much of eating and drinking is automatic that we don't often slow down and think about these oral movements in a personal way. It's that taste and texture. Is it dry? Is it crisp? Is it juicy? And then you swallow. Take another bite. Okay. I noticed the next selection in the book is making baked apples. So if you are feeling like spice, the scent of apples, clove, why not bake an apple slowly in the oven and enjoy that? So seasonal wishes from Ruth, Nigel and Sybil the cat. Bonne fête.